Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started? So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our workshop today on self-care and work-life balance. My name is Jessica Byron. I'm one of the graduate associates that works in the Office of Career Development.
And my name is Elisa Moreira. I'm also a graduate associate that works in career development.
And today we're going to be talking to you guys about self-care and work-life balance. And this is a topic that both Elisa and I are really excited to be able to share with you all because it's something that's very near and dear to us. And it's an area that both Elisa and I have actually studied in our master's program here at Roosevelt. So we're really excited to be able to share with you all some of the information we've taken away from our studies and how we can incorporate self-care into our everyday work life. I think right now, especially during our current circumstances, working from home in a pandemic, or maybe even trying to find a job right now, it's important that we're able to take some time for ourselves and really focus on that self-care aspect now more than ever. So I want to start talking a little bit about the overall importance of self-care. So when we think of self-care, sometimes self-care can have many different definitions for many different people. The definition that I want to focus on for this presentation is when we think of self-care, it's anything that you can do deliberately for your mental, your physical, and your emotional well-being. And I really want to emphasize the deliberately portion of that statement because it's not enough to just think we're doing self-care. For example, maybe we think of self-care as, well, I take a shower every day. But if we're not specifically stating the reason as to why we're doing something and we acknowledge it's for self-care, it really doesn't have the same effect that it could have if we identify that piece or whatever we are doing as self-care. So it's really important that we're making that conscious choice of whatever that activity is. So one quote that I really like about self-care is that self-care is a priority and a necessity. It's not a luxury in the work that we do. So the thing about self-care is that it really encourages positive relationships with ourselves. And I think sometimes in our society, people think of self-care as something that's a luxury. It's not really a necessity, when actually it is a necessity. So it's really important that if we don't already have that mindset, that we learn how to shift our mindset into viewing that self-care is something that is not only a necessity, but it's something that's productive for ourselves. And it's also something that's really essential, especially right now during this pandemic, having to manage a heavy schedule, whether it be work, if you're taking summer classes, having to work through assignments, dealing with family now 24/7 or relationships, depending on who you're living with and staying at home with. It's really important that we can incorporate self-care to be able to manage all these responsibilities in these different aspects of our life. And another piece of the importance of self-care is that incorporating self-care into our everyday routine allows us to be the best version of ourselves, which is something we all strive for. And being able to be the best version of ourselves not only benefits us in the long run, but it also benefits the relationships you have with others. Because when you think about it, if you're not the best version of yourself, you're not really going to want to be around certain people, or certain people may not want to be around you. So it's really important that you understand how to incorporate self-care.
So first, let's start by talking about the benefits of self-care. One benefit of self-care is better productivity. So when you start making time for yourself and the things that matter the most to you, you start focusing on those goals and you're able to concentrate better on the task at hand. A second benefit is better physical health. Self-care allows the body to energize as well as improve the immune system. So this means that you will get fewer cases of colds, flus, upset stomachs. So overall, you will be feeling better. A third benefit is an enhanced self-esteem. When you take time to meet your own needs, you start treating yourself like you matter, which increases your self-esteem. A fourth benefit is an increased self-knowledge. So to practice self-care, you need to think about what you love to do. So this helps you feel passionate, inspired, and it helps you understand yourself a lot better. And lastly, you have more to give. as Jessica had mentioned before, by taking care of yourself, you are better able to give to others. So this leads us to the areas of self-care, which include physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, social, professional, and just overall self-care. We will go into more detail in the following slides. So I will first start with physical self-care. Some ways that you can do physical self-care is, eating a regular breakfast, taking time off when you're sick, so you're really able to focus on taking care of yourself and getting better. Wearing clothes you like. This can be clothes that make you feel comfortable, but even just because you're home does not mean you have to stay in your pajamas all day. If you feel more comfortable wearing a dress, go for it. And exercising as well. This does not necessarily mean you have to go for a run or go to the weight room. You can do things such as taking a walk or even taking your dog for a walk. That's a way of exercising, dancing to your favorite songs, going on bike rides, and there's so many different options. You can also get massages. Of course, with the situation right now, I don't know how that is working out. So maybe thinking of other ways. Eating healthy, doing a fun activity. This could be whatever hobbies you like to do. It could be hiking, fishing, creating art. Also getting enough sleep. Not only is it important to get enough sleep, but also having a balanced sleeping habit is important for your body to feel well rested. So get enough sleep, but also do not oversleep. Oversleeping may cause you to feel more exhausted, and in return, you're less productive. It is possible that many of us might have been feeling unmotivated or bored at home. So finding things that you can do in the morning other than laying in bed and sleeping is a good idea. And then also making sure that we get regular medical care. Now we will discuss some psychological ways to self-care. So saying no to extra responsibilities. So if a friend asks you to hang out, but it's been a long day, you're exhausted, do not be afraid to tell them no. Be okay with leaving work at work. If you don't leave work at work, this will only cause more stress and decrease your productivity because your mind will be elsewhere. Read something unrelated to work. Make time for self-reflection. So you can set a phone reminder. You can schedule a few times out of your day to self-reflect on how your day has been so far. Doing so will help you become aware and make changes in your routine if needed. Make time away from technology and the internet. I think this is really important, especially lately, since we have been bombarded by social media and the news about the recent events that, might be causing anxiety, stress, depression, and other symptoms among us. So just, put your phone away and focus on other things, and instead of looking at all the negativity. Notice thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and feelings. Do something that you are not an expert at. So this is your time to do things that you might have been wanting to try for a while, whether that is cooking a certain dish, practicing a new language, skill. This allows you to get out of your comfort zone, and if it's something that you've been wanting to try for a while, you will feel accomplished after completing it. Now we will move on to emotional. Spend time with people whose company you enjoy. I know that it can be a little bit hard given the circumstances right now, but even if you can spend time with certain family or friends, Give them a call, try to video chat with them, send them a card. Give yourself affirmation and praise. It might seem silly at first, but it will give you a boost of confidence that will help you throughout the day. And allow yourself to cry. We have gone through so many difficult events these past months. It is okay to feel the way you're feeling. And if that is sad or hurt in any way, allow yourself to cry. Do not be so hard on yourself. Letting it out allows us to feel much better than holding those feelings in. And be able to identify and seek out comforting activities and places when you need it.
Okay, so the next area that I want to talk a little bit about is spiritual. So when we think of spiritual self-care, there's a couple different things that we can do. So one of them, be aware of non-material aspects of your life. So when I say non-material aspects, this can be anything from your own beliefs, maybe values that you really live your life by, what are your morals, maybe certain organizations that you abide by. So have a good idea of what are these aspects of your life that are crucial to you, and how does that contribute to your overall spirituality as far as self-care. Another thing, try at times not to be in charge or be the expert at something. And I think sometimes this can be hard for some of us, especially if maybe we strive for perfection. It's really important to kind of figure out how can we let go of this sense of perfectionism and really just acknowledge that, you know, sometimes it's okay not to be in charge or maybe know everything that's going on about something. And this can be either in your personal life or maybe in your work, professional life. Another thing, reading or listening to something that's inspirational. So I think, as Elisa had mentioned, you know, I think during this time, many of us maybe have kind of slipped off of the path of motivation. Maybe we're struggling to find some motivation. So maybe finding an inspirational book or maybe an inspirational podcast, something that's really going to be able to lift you up and give you that push that you need right now. Something like spending time in nature. This could be anything from maybe riding your bike, taking a walk. I know something that I've kind of done during this time is find new trails around my neighborhood and being able just to walk with my dog in the trails. That's something that's kind of boosted up my spirituality as far as self-care. Another thing that you can do is meditate or be engaged in mindfulness. This is actually proven to be very helpful when it comes to self-care overall, but specifically for our spiritual self-care. So there's some really great apps that are available both on iPhone and Android. Some of them that come to mind are Headspace is a great app for meditation. An app called Calm is great for guided meditation as well. You can even do a quick search on YouTube and find thousands of videos that have meditation. So if you haven't tried that, I would suggest that you give it a shot. And something else too for spirituality, have experiences of awe. This really struck me as something that I think many people don't do. And just having an experience of awe, taking time in the moment to just stop and look around and see what's going on in the present moment. I think a lot of us maybe sometimes struggle with either thinking too much in the past or thinking of everything we have to do in the upcoming days, weeks. So really just taking time in the day to be grounded and really have a sense of what's going on around you is a great way to help as far as your self-care and spirituality. Social aspects of self-care. So as Elisa had mentioned too, just calling or checking in on relatives and friends. It may not be so easy right now to physically see any relatives or friends more so than we would like to, but even with the pleasures right now of having Zoom or Skype or FaceTime, there's so many ways that we can still have that physical connection with people. Allowing others to do things for you. I think this really is a challenge for some people, especially in the workplace. If coworkers or maybe peers may ask if you need help or if you need assistance doing something. I think sometimes people have this mentality where they need to be independent or the mentality that I can do it on my own. But really allow yourself that if somebody is willing to help you, take their offer and take advantage of that help. If they're offering to help you, there's nothing wrong with accepting that. Another thing, asking for help when you need it. So being able to self-advocate for yourself, and if you are struggling, being able to go to somebody with help and ask them for it. And also making time to be with partners, friends, and families. Being able to prioritize, who are the people that I want to spend my time with. So in this regard, when it comes to social self-care, really being choosy about who it is that you want to spend time with, right? With already our busy schedules of having to balance work and social responsibilities and balancing our personal lives and anything else we may have going on, really being selective of who is a social group that we want to spend the most time with, right? And who actually makes us feel good. Because research has shown that the people that you decide to isolate with the most and actually spend time with, they're really going to have an effect on your overall mental health and other areas of your life. So you really want to be selective. Professional self-care. So being able to take time to chat with coworkers. So this can be just engaging in casual conversations outside of work material. I think sometimes in the workplace, we may get caught up talking about the latest tasks that we have to complete or what projects are coming up, deadlines, but maybe it's taking time out of your day just to chat with them about how their weekend was. It's really important to make that professional connection as well as a little bit of a personal connection in the workplace. Especially individuals who are working full-time. I mean, you spend over 40 hours sometimes with the same group of people, so it's important to develop that personal relationship. Being able to balance your workload so that nothing is way too much. So it's important that the work that you have in a professional setting, it should be challenging enough for you that you're able to maintain and be able to accomplish the work that needs to be done, but you want to make sure that it's manageable as well. So if you find yourself that you're struggling, not being able to complete tasks maybe on time, maybe your supervisor, your manager is giving you too much to do, again, being able to advocate for yourself that I need some help. Or depending on what role you're in, maybe you could ask a colleague or another coworker, and being able to delegate certain tasks to those individuals if maybe they've completed their tasks earlier, and being able to find a way to balance your workload. And then the last piece, being able to arrange a workspace that's comfortable for you. And especially right now, as many of us are still working from home, being able to develop what I call a home office. So maybe you don't have a designated room in your home right now that is set as an office, but being able to create a space that you acknowledge is for work only. That really helps being able to distinguish between when it's work time and when it's time to have our own personal lives. And it causes a psychological effect on us as well. If we're able to sit in a workspace, maybe it's a certain chair in our kitchen, maybe it is a certain room that we do our work in, but being able to assign that designated spot. Some other things for professional self-care, being able to take a break during the day. Again, so being able to acknowledge, if we're still working from home right now, what do you consider your downtimes? And what I mean by downtimes, typically if we go into the office or however your working at home schedule might be, if you're set to work from 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are, being able to decide what are your times when you find yourself to be least productive. Maybe you're more of a morning person where you can get up right away and you can get most of your work done by noon. Or maybe you're somebody who kind of struggles in the morning to really get up and start moving, and you don't find yourself to be as productive until 1 or 2 or maybe later in the evening. So being able to decide what are the times that you're most productive, and then being able to schedule out your work around the times that you're more productive. Being able to identify rewarding tasks. So what are the tasks that you do that make you feel accomplished? And I think especially right now, kind of going into that motivation piece, it's really going to help when you're completing rewarding tasks for yourself, because that's going to help boost your motivation. So for example, for me, some of my rewarding tasks in my position would be being able to do workshops such as these, or being able to meet with students for one-on-one appointments. For me, that's something that I find to be a rewarding task, maybe not so much as, like checking emails. So being able to identify what are those rewarding tasks, and when you do those, be able to acknowledge that. And the last piece, have a peer support group. So, who are the individuals that you feel you can go to when you feel you're struggling with your self care in a professional setting? So, maybe you feel very comfortable talking with your supervisor if you need additional support, or maybe it's just certain coworkers in your department that you feel really comfortable talking to. Making sure that you have that outlet already identified so that when you do need to approach them, you already know who to go to. And the last piece of self-care, just thinking of overall self-care. So when we think of overall self-care, kind of incorporating those different areas into just one big piece. So having balance within our work life as well as our work day. So being able to distinguish, based on our work life overall, maybe within a week, or what our overall responsibilities are of a position, seeing how that is balanced out with what we're doing each day at work. Being able to balance among our family, friends, and different relationships. So again, focus more on that social piece. How are we managing our time within each of these areas? Being able to balance between work, what we consider fun, as well as what we consider rest. So again, that rest piece, we could be working all day and then have fun after work, but then where is that downtime for us to have as well? It's important to have that balance between all three. And again, the balance could be different for each person, but knowing what is your balance. Having balance between work or service and our own personal time. And then having balance and looking forward and acknowledging the moment. So again, having that understanding that we want to acknowledge what's going on in the moment, but it shouldn't discredit all that we can be looking for in the future, or what are the future goals that we're working towards, because that's what's going to help keep our motivation up as well, right? So again, we want to make sure that we're able to maintain that balance between what needs to be done now, as well as focusing on what are the goals in the future. Okay, so after going over all those areas of self-care, one thing that might be coming to mind is that's great, but now how do I make time for all of these areas of self-care? Maybe one is taking more precedence over the other. And is obtaining balance even possible right now? Well, I'm here to say that it is. So one of the first things that you can start doing when it comes to making time for self-care in your life, start where you are and make it your baseline. And you want to make sure that you're not comparing yourself to others. So it may be great that somebody that you know is able to maintain a balance between everything. And you may think, how do they do it? Like, that's great for them. And now it's your time to kind of figure out what's going to work for you and how can you maintain your own balance. So again, start with where you're at right now. The second thing, choose one thing that you want to focus on and make it your goal. So maybe there's something that you really want to do as far as self-care. It could be maybe focusing on one of the specific areas that we had talked about. Maybe it kind of goes back to all the examples that Elisa had mentioned too in the beginning of how to incorporate self-care. And maybe you want to do one of those specific things. So really focus on one thing and keep that at the forefront. So even some other examples, if you wanted to have better stress management skills to be able to manage stress better in your personal life and your work life, being able to exercise more. Once you have that one thing that you want to focus on, you want to make sure that that goal is small, specific, and realistic. And the three things like that, so if we take the example of more exercise, that could be the one thing we want to focus on. So how do we make it small, specific, and realistic? One example could be that you want to walk every Monday after work for 30 minutes, because you want to make sure that the more specific a goal is, the better the outcome you're actually going to have. And research has shown once you start making goals specific and small, you're more likely to obtain those goals. So it's always best to err on the side of caution and start with a small goal rather than having one big overarching goal. If you do have one big goal, that's great. Now find a way of how you can make it even smaller and break it up into individual tasks. The next thing is schedule self-care into your daily routine. So being able to pair self-care with your current routine, number one, requires less effort because you're already tying it into something that you do currently. And it also helps distinguish and carve out that time for you time in your self-care routine. So one thing might be, maybe you're really interested in wanting to incorporate meditation into your everyday life. So something you might do, maybe in the morning, right when you wake up, You do some mindfulness meditation with a YouTube video. So being able to kind of tie it into something that you already do. And then lastly, make sure that you're checking in with yourself and allow yourself that opportunity to have self-reflection. So after you do a specific thing, check in with yourself. How do you feel after you do that task? What are you actually getting out of it? And you want to make sure that the things that you are doing related to self-care, you want to make sure that they actually make you feel good afterwards, right? I mean, somebody could try meditation and say, you know what, this is not for me. But at least once you know that, then you can find something else that can be incorporated into self-care. And the only way you're going to be able to recognize what is helping and what is not is taking that time to kind of check in with yourself and do self-reflection. And then that way you can find out what's the best way for you to spend your time on things that are going to help you not only feel better about yourself, but help you work towards any goals that you might have. And another thing that I wanted to mention too that I don't have listed on here, kind of identify too what gives you joy in regards to self-care, or maybe even joy just in the workplace. And then being able to apply what it is that you enjoy to other areas of your life. This really helps kind of, again, reframe the overall self-care and just have you really work on having a more positive outlook when it comes to both professional as well as personal lives.
All right, so now let's discuss how we can balance our professional and our personal life. So trust your intuition, get your budget in order. This will help to create organization and ease financial stress, so you can be able to focus on other things such as your family, hobbies, etc. Give your morning routine a makeover. So there are a few different ways that you can do this. You can even start the night before by making a to-do list of things that you want to accomplish in the morning. You can pre-make your breakfast or your lunch. That way you don't have to worry about it in the morning and you have time for other things. If the first thing you do in the morning is grab your phone, you can try to avoid phone distractions. 5 minutes on Instagram can turn into hours on social media. And before you know it, the morning is over. You can also try to write positive things in a journal and even take 15 to 20 minutes to meditate, do yoga, or listen to your favorite podcast. Whatever will bring you happiness. Feel your feelings. Let yourself truly rest. And so how we have discussed already, making sure that you take that time. You're working, you're spending time with family, friends, but when do you find that time to rest? There has to be a balance between all of those. And schedule one thing you look forward to. This is really exciting thing to do, to put on your calendar, because you have work and then other tasks, and then there's this thing that you can look forward to, whether it's in every day that you schedule something, or once a week you schedule something bigger to do. But having that thing that you look forward to is important. Some other tips are to set boundaries. So this was mentioned before, making sure that you know how to say no when you need to say no. So if that friend calls you up and wants to hang on. If you're had a long day and you're exhausted, being able to set that boundary and telling them that you can make it today. Maximize your alone time. Being able to track your time, ask for support, create more stability. Focus on your basic needs. This is as simple as, you've been working for a while. Okay, have you had lunch yet? Have you been staying hydrated? Have you been sitting on this chair for a few hours? You need to get up, move around, and then set your priorities.
And kind of one thing too, going off of what Elisa just said, I wanted to add on there too. Create a schedule that works for each of you and actually stick to it. So I think it's important right now, at least working from home too, right? I mean, if we're home all day, sometimes we might get into this rut where we feel like we have to work, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, the entire day. We're constantly checking our emails. But if we have a schedule, maybe we say, I'm going to be logged in from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Having that set boundary for yourself that after 5 p.m., I'm not checking any more work and I'm done for the day. So I think it's important too when it comes to setting your priorities, setting that boundary, being able to actually stick to it, even if it's something as simple as having a work schedule.
Thank you for adding that. Okay, so let's cover some golden rules for balancing professional and personal life. So get comfortable with putting yourself first. As we have been discussing, work is important and other things are important, but you yourself are important as well. And if you're not fully energized and ready to complete that task, then, it's time for some self-care and putting yourself first. Being able to unplug in the moment. This is especially important right now. So, as we have been saying, many of you might be working from home, which can be very exhausting. You can sit somewhere for hours in front of the computer. Your vision starts getting blurry. So just taking that time to step outside, get some fresh air, get up and stretch for a bit, enjoy a nice cup of coffee or tea, and just be mindful of that. So these are just a few things that you can do to, take a few minutes back from all that work that you're doing. Embrace an integration mindset. So creating this mindset allows you to incorporate work and your personal life while trying to find a balance. Take mini breaks. So this kind of also applies to unplugging the moment, finding those things, whether it's just taking 5 minutes every hour and, taking a breather. This will all help with creating that balance. And that way you can be more productive as well. Self-care should be simple and healthy rituals that, keep your mind and your body energized.
Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about today for this presentation is this idea of positive affirmations. And this is something that I really like in regards to self-care because it's something that everybody can do for themselves. And it only takes a matter of a few seconds to incorporate either into your self-care for personal or even your work life. So for those of you who don't know what positive affirmations are, these are statements that are repeated to yourself that encourage and uplift whoever it is that's speaking them. And when I say positive affirmations, I know sometimes we may be thinking of maybe positive quotes or just overall positive statements. But positive affirmations are really so much more than that. So what makes these affirmations unique is that they actually follow the language of our brains, and these can be tied to all areas of self-care. So part of positive affirmations is that they are written in present tense and they only include positive words. And they're spoken as statements of fact and truth. And obviously they're going to be relevant to whatever it is that's, that you're creating this positive affirmation about. So when we say a positive affirmation, we always want to repeat them several times, either in our head or even out loud. Sometimes if we say them out loud, they have a greater effect on us. But they help build our confidence, our self-esteem, and our overall sense of better self-care. So kind of how is a positive affirmation created? The brain responds to a thought in its process. So we always want to make sure, as I mentioned, that positive affirmations are written in present tense because since these affirmations follow the language of the brain, it's really hard for the brain to process a negative statement and actually turn it into a positive statement. So we always want to make sure we're speaking in a positive set. We want to make sure when we're saying positive affirmations that we're not using words like might or could, because they're going to be less powerful than if you use statements like am or do. So for example, if you would say, I could complete all these projects for work, rather than saying I will complete all these projects for work. And you, again, you want to make sure that they're relevant on what you actually want to achieve. So if you wanted to use a positive affirmation, maybe before a job interview to kind of boost up your confidence and your self-esteem, what is that overall goal in that interview? Is it just to have a good job interview, or is it to showcase your skills as being confident, successful, and likable to that employer? So what exactly are you trying to get out of a situation? So again, so it's really important if everybody could think of positive affirmations for themselves, and in the moment when you're thinking of them, being able to state them to yourself slowly. So you want to make sure that you're allowing enough time for your brain to really process the statement that you're saying. And again, repeating it 3, 4, 5 times. So some examples that come to my mind, a positive affirmation in the workplace could be, I learned from my mistakes. So being able to repeat that several times, it's going to key in your brain that it's okay to make mistakes because you're going to learn from them. Or something like, I further my career with each task I complete. So maybe saying something like that to kind of boost up your confidence again and self-esteem, maybe especially right now, as some people may be trying to find a job or maybe are not finding themselves motivated in their current position. Being able to, it's almost kind of like a self-coaching in the moment. So keeping positive affirmations in mind too is a great way to kind of boost our overall self-care, not only in the professional life, but even maybe other areas of self-care that you might think about. And again, I have the link down at the bottom of this slide for different ways of how to create positive affirmations for yourself and to get a little bit more familiar on what they are. Okay, so that's all that Elisa and I have for self-care and work-life balance. On this slide here, I just have our resources that we offer for career development. We are still working remotely from home, but we are still doing student appointments via Zoom. So if anybody has any questions regarding career counseling, resume and cover letter reviews, exploring their majors, career assessments, grad school plans, interviewing, networking, internships, job searching, please feel free to either give us a call at the number below, or you can send us an email to set up an appointment with one of the career counselors or one of us graduate associates. We are here to help you guys. We also do have a career fair that is in the planning process right now to have a virtual career fair. So please stay tuned for that for more information. As well, we will also be having another Zoom workshop next week, which is super exciting for preparing for the career fair. So please stay tuned for more information that will be shared about that. But if anybody has any questions, maybe something that you were hoping we would cover that maybe we didn't, please feel free to type a question in the chat and we can see if any come up and we'd be happy to answer them. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any questions come up. So if any of you do have any questions, you can always send us an email or call us. We'd be happy to answer any questions that maybe pop up after this presentation. But otherwise, as I mentioned, we do have our career fair prep workshop next week on Wednesday. at 3 p.m. So again, there will be a registration link that goes out for that. If you are interested in joining for that workshop, please register online. We'd love to have you. But otherwise, I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day, and thank you so much for tuning into our workshop. Have a great day.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone.